You are listening to the Practicing the Art of Small Business podcast with Shannyn Merlo and Julie Parker. Join their conversations about business, leadership, and the self-awareness journey to greater success.
Welcome to Practicing the Art of Business, episode number 4. Hello, Shannyn.
Hello, Julie. It's great to be here for episode 4.
Certainly is. Seems like no time has passed since episode 3 ended.
And
recording the both on the same day.
And say for anyone who's watching us, yes, we are wearing the same clothes. Episode 3 finished 2.5 minutes ago.
That's it. We thought the next topic would be, well, actually, Shannyn brought it up, on the importance of planning in business. And so I thought I'd put Shannyn completely on the spot and say, yikes, and say, Shannyn, when you have a new client on board and you get to the planning stage, what process do you take them through to get some structure around that?
Okay, good question. I work reasonably organically with my clients. So I do tend to take an approach that is about where they're at in their own journey and how to modify the approach based on their journey. But there's a couple of things that I'll always look to do as part of the planning. So I always ask them to fill in a document about their vision, and we talked in episode number 2, I think it was, about purpose, and we talked a little bit about vision. But the vision that I'm talking about is a 3 to 5 year vision. So what I want to see in terms of business planning is, where do they want to be in 3 to 5 years? Because we need to start making decisions today in order to help them to get there. So the vision document that I have asked them to think about, where are they operating their business, how many staff they have, where what sort of product verticals are they investing in, what are they known for, what are some of the other questions I ask? I don't ask about revenue during that vision document, because I want to understand how big or small their business is in 3 to 5 years, because not everyone wants to take over the world and have 10 offices around Australia. That's totally fine. Some people just want to remain themselves and have their work outsourced. Some of them want to be investing in new product development. Some of them just want to market their existing products to new markets. So it just depends. So the vision helps them get clear on where they want to go and helps me to understand where they want to go. So the vision document is pretty important as part of planning. The other thing that I often get them to do, so this is all pre-work to help me understand and challenge them on where to put the plans in place, is where are they spending their time at the moment and where do they want to be spending their time? So this is a really big one for business owners, because quite often, I don't know what your experience is, Julie, and I'll ask you what your experience is.
Thanks so much.
At some stage, I won't make an assumption, but certainly in my experience, often when I come on board, there's normally a capacity issue with the business owners, and they're often spending their time and energy in areas that are not their genius zone. It's not their area of where they love being, or they want to grow in that. In episode 3, we're talking about growth mindset. So it's totally cool to hang out in an area where we want to grow in. But quite often I'll find, if I see a business owner who's turning over a decent amount of coin and they're doing bookkeeping, unless they're a bookkeeper, you can be sure that's going on the list of things that you're outsourcing to somebody else. Nice. So there are 2 fundamental things that I get business owners to provide to me before we start building a bit more of a plan. I might pause there. Where do you start with your businesses in terms of planning, Julie?
I agree with you. I think it needs to be an organic thing. And you could sit down and you could design the perfect journey for a client, and it would work very well for a client, but not for every client, because everyone's at different stages of awareness, of need. Some people come to you quite desperate. And so my first step is just to have that patient just have that verbal diarrhea. Tell me what's going on.
Patient. Just for those who may have just stumbled across our podcast. Yes. Julie niches within dental practices, and she normally works with dental practice owners, so dentists, and I think she's just gone one level further. So I'm talking patients.
Coordination.
But you do you, Julie.
So what I tend to take this approach now that we're on the dental thing. Thanks so much for the segue to that.
Pleasure.
Because sometimes clients will say, they'll ring me as you say, I'm in the dental practice area. They'll ring me and say, as a consultant, what can you do for me? And I say to them, that's the same as a patient. I say it in a very polite way. This sounds harsh. That's the same as a patient coming to you for a dental examination saying, what can you do for me?
Oh my God, I wish my clients were, because it is, we often get people saying, how can you change my business? Yeah. I don't know. Do you want me to brainstorm the 100,000 ways that I could potentially impact your business? Or do you want to tell me about the problems that you've got and I can solve those specifically?
Exactly. And that's what they're experiencing at the moment. That's where their mind is at. And there is a great book that I used as a resource years ago when I was working with dental patients in the dental space. I was a treatment coordinator. So taking them through that journey of, this is, the dentist has said, this is what your oral condition is and what the solutions are, and then answering all their questions when they'll either end up getting the treatment or part of the treatment or no treatment. It's up to them, obviously. And this book was called The Anatomy of Persuasion by Norbert Aubuchon. And it takes us through what our brains do when we're making a decision, a purchasing decision. And the very first thing is that there needs to have a need identified. And then we need to recognize that that need is something that we want to move on and take action on. And then we go through a period of searching for options and then evaluation of all those different options and then finally a decision. I feel like just as dental patients would come in and they'd have certain questions in their brain in the early stages, they can't think about payment plans if they haven't yet made the decision around which treatment option they're going to have. They can't decide on a treatment option until they've done all of their search of all the different options themselves. They can't do that search. They won't even be interested in the search until they've actually identified that they have a dental need and it's a need strong enough for them to do something about. And I think that our clients, coaching clients, are the same. So pushing them into a templated process is quite possibly forcing them out of their current headspace into a different headspace, but they're not ready to be there yet. And so it will be an inelegant process for them. So I agree, it needs to be organic. We need to meet them where they're at.
What can our clients, this is cool, and it's great that you and I think this way. What can our listeners apply that to? I wonder whether this is the used car salesman tactic, right? And for any of our listeners, I'd love for you to put yourself in this situation, okay? So you're going to buy a secondhand car, and we're going 80s here, so just close your eyes and go into brown pants and beige short-sleeved tops with a nice tie. And
looking good, looking sharp.
It's looking sharp, and a guy walks over, and he's probably smoking because it's the 80s. And he swans over, and he says, and he shakes the man's hand because we're in the 80s.
Yeah, that's right. What's COVID? Yeah.
And he's plus it's also the man's hand because the woman, the little lady.
Don't take women's hands. Yeah, they don't make the decisions. Yeah.
Correct. And he says, "Are you looking to buy a car?" And
I love your salesman voice. My God, it's quite sexy.
Yeah, but he's wearing brown pants, so
we've got the whole image going. I love it.
So he says, "You're looking to buy a car," and guy says, or lady says, whoever says, the purchaser says, "Yes, we're looking for a family car." And he says, "Stop right there. I've got just the thing for you." And he walks you through the lot, and he says, "Look at this beauty." And it's now it's really 70s, because this is a lime green, kind of a two-seater, it's a Chevrolet, you know, something shiny, but completely impractical for a family. And they're like, yeah, but we've got a family. And he goes, no, this is the car that you want, because this car goes from 0 to 60 and 80.
I don't even know if that's right or wrong. I don't know why I'm laughing, but I'm assuming it's wildly wrong.
You know, before it wasn't, you know, back in the day, that would have been a performance car. It goes from 0 to 60 in 5.4 seconds. This baby purrs like a kitten, and and so on and so forth. Now, purchasers go, oh, it's a nice car, but we've got a family and we really need to do it. It goes, no. Car, green, good, goes fast, so on and so forth. And he's pretty convincing. And he's also a bit of a pressure salesman. And at the end of the day, they sign the deal and they walk out and they're like, okay, well, we've bought a car, but it's not actually what we want. So then they have post-purchase horrors and so on and so forth, and they don't talk about the car dealership. They don't recommend the car dealership. Now, I know if you didn't get caught up in the green car and my inability to know about car performance of the 80s.
A little snapshot into Shannon's mind.
And then it's really the short sleeve business shirt that I'm still stuck on. But if you haven't got caught on that, the point of it is that the purchaser was not engaged at all in the purchase decision. So the used car salesperson had the car. I want to sell you that car. I actually don't care whether that solves your problems. I just want you to sell that car. Now, how many of our listeners are guilty of selling the solution without fully understanding the problem of their customer? And this is where sales goes a little bit awry, where we don't genuinely try to find out what the problems are that our customer is facing, so that we can genuinely go through a sales conversation to solve that problem.
That is great, Shannyn, because you have tapped into the theory behind a book that I've just picked up. I haven't even got through to chapter number 3 yet. It is They Ask, You Answer by Marcus Sheridan. And it is talking about it's marketing nowadays that sells product and services, not salespeople.
Mm-hmm.
But because of the internet and its impact on our buying behaviour, by the time people come to you for your product or service, they're already 70% on board.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing that gets them over the line isn't a talented salesperson anymore. It is your ability to answer all their questions. And so to not have the purpose of your interaction with that buyer, that potential buyer, to make a sale, make a booking, the purpose is to answer all of their questions. They ask, you answer. This is where the client will tell you exactly where they're at in that buying process, because they are going to be asking the questions that are occurring to them naturally in their brain. You'll be answering them. I've got that answered now that leads to this question. And now I've got that answered, now that leads to this question. And now eventually the last question will be, and how do I buy it? I have only got to chapter number 3 though, so it may not be the whole purpose of the book. I'm surely not brilliant enough to get the whole gist of the book by chapter number 3.
So great discussion, and I think that we can talk more about sales, because I'm pretty passionate about talking authentic sales. But how do we now relate this back to business planning and helping our listeners to, why should we have a business plan, or what does a plan look like, or goal setting? What's the next step?
And I think the question, some people, when you say, where do you want to be in 2, 3, 4, 5 years' time, some people have contemplated that. Some people have not. My client this morning doesn't have any plans around that. They just say, how can I spend less time on the minor duties of the business? That's my whole goal. That's the reason you've come on board. And so with that particular client, I certainly said, there's a whole range of different things I can talk to you about in terms of goals and where you want to be: financial, leadership, team, systems, strategy, marketing. However, forcing answers to those sort of questions when they're not even aware of them is placing goals in place that are meaningless to that person. We want meaningful goals. And those meaningful goals will occur to them as they go on their journey. With not even just the journey with the consultant, but the journey of business ownership, that different goals, the need for them will rise to the top. Yes. And they will be dealt with as they arrive. But once we've got any kind of goal in place, then it's a reverse engineer process. To get there, we need to do this, 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 and this.
And that's a really good point that you bring up, Julie, because it does resonate with me quite a lot. Although I've got that vision document, there is really no wrong or right in it. If I was to fill it in myself, there would be a lack of specificity around it, because there's still some challenges in my business that I haven't worked out how to solve yet. I don't know if I'm going to expand with other consultants. I don't know if I'm going to bring other coaches on board, but I do know that the current problems that I've got is a time for money problem, which is any consultant has a time for money challenge. And so I'm solving that with a product vertical at the moment. But what does 5 years look like? I'm not quite sure. And I'm actually okay with the uncertainty around it. Now, there are people who are out there who are going to be judging that. They're going to be saying, how can you be a consultant to help me 5 years' time if you don't know what you want in 5 years' time? Well, my belief, Julie, is that's your journey and I'm on my journey, and we can be on separate journeys, but we can still work with each other. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I've never been one for a 5-year plan. It's too far in advance. Goodness me, look at my long 50 years on this earth. There's been a couple of business ownerships, there's been this and that, there's been COVID. To me, 5 years has always been way too far ahead for me to be able to plan. And I don't want to have a 5-year goal that resonates with me right now, but maybe in a year's time it doesn't resonate with me. I much prefer shorter term goals of the next year or two, but being quite flexible still in that space where this goal is going to evolve as my needs and my business evolves.
Yeah. So just to add the contrast, Julie, for our listeners who are going, oh, hang on, but I've got a really clear idea. Totally cool. I've got 2 clients at the moment that I'm working with. One, we are growing to sell the business. They are looking at retirement in the near future. And when I say near future, 5 to 10 years. So a clear goal to grow the business for sale. So the decisions that we're making now is very much aligned with the goal to sell the business. So we're working to remove that client off the tools as much as possible, building in systems around their business so that the value of the business is enough for them to be able to sell it. Another client is looking to grow up the East Coast of Australia over the next couple of years, and they're in an industry that has a unique workforce. And so what we're doing now is actually breeding their workforce. I don't mean like making humans, but
wow, that's quite a job description.
We're in genetics. No, so we're creating the workforce with a strategy of bringing people who don't necessarily have the skills in it and upskilling them. And we're also building systems and processes as well as clients up the East Coast of Australia. So if the goal is clear, we can do things today that actually help us to get to the goal. If the goal is unclear, totally cool. We can do what we need today to get us to what we want to achieve tomorrow. And I think this is really just about, I love this word, Julie, the heterogeneity of humans. Yes, I did use.
I've heard of that before. What is that again? Say it again.
It's heterogeneity, and I probably said that wrong for our.
Heterogeneity.
So it basically just means that everyone is different. Nothing is, that there's no real sameness. We are all unique, and the more that we can embrace the fact that we are all different, we all think differently, and that is what makes us humans amazing, and we can embrace that, and there's no right or wrong, it just is where we're at, then the better off I think our human race can be. It's gone deep.
It has gone deep. But that's a very good point, that sometimes the answer to the goal question is just to be better.
Oh, I want to be better. I want to be better in 1 minute's time than what I was a minute ago.
Well, we're nearly there. You're better because we've just about finished episode number 4. So you've been very productive. So you are better.
Oh, happy days. And learning from you, of course.
And likewise. So that planning journey is taking on a consultant or a coach. One, it can really help from a self-awareness perspective and shifting your experience of business management, ownership, leadership, just change your experience of it because you're shifting the way you think about it and bringing in new concepts of thought. But from a structural point of view within the business itself, it's putting plan to thought. It's bringing all those thoughts, aspirations, dreams, and housing them into a process that makes logistical sense. Because certainly when we've got a goal of any kind and we've got time to reach that goal, we have many options open in front of us in order to achieve that goal and plenty of time to do it. Checking in constantly as we go, modifying the strategies and processes as we get there. It's when you function in your business like Groundhog Day, wake up, just do the same again, that all of a sudden 5 years has gone by and you're like, I feel like I'm exactly the same as where I was 5 years ago. I want to make sure the next 5 years is more meaningful.
One thing that I really want to point out as you're talking, it relates, but it's not really related, just to confuse our listeners. There's one thing that I would encourage our listeners to ensure they have in their business, whether they have a big goal or not, and that would be a key performance indicator of any sort. Now, we can talk more about key performance indicators if people want to get into them, and a key performance indicator can be there can be many key performance indicators or KPIs, if people are more familiar with that term, or there can just be one. And it could be revenue, it could be profit margins, it can be conversions of sale. It can be, one of the ones that a number of my clients have is the number of referrals that they get from existing clients, which is a great KPI, because if they have a target of, let's say, 2 referrals from every client, then you're going to be sure that you're going to be delivering great service to every client, and you're going to be asking them for a referral to their network, and that's going to drive further revenue in your business. So a key performance indicator is a small indicator that you can track on a regular basis in your business. And the reason why I want to encourage people to have this, and it could be, as I said, it could just be a revenue, it could be profit, it could be time, budget to actual, it could be, I don't know, Julie, what are some other KPIs that you've got in the front of your mind? Any?
Well, the ones, for example, with a dental surgery is the number of patients that don't turn up to appointment times, the amount of money that's charged every hour and every day, the number of new patients that are coming in the front door, as you say, referral source, but also tracking the key performance indicators that are interrelated, such as my marketing and my new business KPI and how they are tracking within each other. But that's right. This is the way we monitor progress and whether we are in fact on the journey of achieving our goals.
Yes. And the reason why I want to encourage people at a minimum to define what success looks like in detail, in a detailed factor, and start to track against that is, I guarantee you, if you're not currently doing it and you start to do it, your business will actually improve. It is a weird thing. If you've got nervous things about if you've got nervousness around putting things down because, then I'm not going to achieve it, trust me in that it actually improves your business. I don't know if you've experienced that, Julie, but I know that for every client who's tracking on KPIs, they're always close, if not going over those KPIs.
What you focus on grows.
Correct.
And you absolutely manifest what you focus on. And I agree with you. This is a very simplified example, but as a receptionist of years ago, there are the dental software systems out there. They have a way of having a little icon that you click on that you've got your little standby list. You know, people that are on a cancellation list waiting for a sooner appointment time. If I never ever used that, I always used Post-it notes with people's names and what they needed on the Post-it note. I'd have it in front of me all the time. There could be somebody so specific. I want 45 minutes on the 4th of November at 2:00 in the afternoon with that particular dentist. And there would be a patient there that I think to myself, they've been booked in for 6 months. That's their recall. They always turn up. They will never want to move their appointment time. And I tell you what, every single time over my many, many years on reception, every time it was on a Post-it note in front of my face, that patient would move, allowing that Post-it note person to come straight into that appointment time. It happened so often, I made it a system for all receptionists who worked at my practice, that was the system, that you put it out to the universe, you focus on it, and it actually happens. So you're right, universally something does shift. The universe and the planets will align in accordance to what you are focusing on and what you're enthusiastic about.
Yeah, absolutely. So even if you don't have a plan that you're working to, we would really encourage you to think about what is one minimum key performance indicator in your business, and focus on tracking that with regularity and see what happens. And we would love to hear from our listeners on the experience that you've had tracking those key performance indicators over time.
Beautiful, beautiful. It's a wonderful step in the right direction and a lovely way of closing off episode number 4.
What's a key performance? I can't even talk anymore. What is the key performance indicator that we should have in this podcast? 2 listeners to this podcast would be great. That's a great start.
That's right. Well, we've got the ability to know how many people are subscribing. And so you've touched on a very important point. If you are enjoying these first few episodes or this particular episode of this podcast, please become a subscriber. Listen to the previous episodes, share it with your friends, because our KPI is boosting up those subscriber numbers to more than 2.
Because in finalizing, Julie, we talked about this in our purpose. My purpose is to have a positive impact on business owners and workplaces. And so if this podcast has a positive impact on you, I would this is my call to our listeners. I would love for you to share that with others, because that's going to help me to fulfill my purpose. So please do subscribe and share, so that it's all about me, so that I can fulfill my purpose to have a positive impact.
Has to be about somebody, Shannyn. Why not you?
It's all about me.
We look forward to seeing everybody on episode number 5. Have a great week.
Bye.